This is the Jedburgh podcast. I'm the creator and host, Fran Racioppi. Each episode, I speak with transformative leaders, visionaries, drivers of change, and those dedicated to winning, no matter the challenge. The Jedburgh podcast is founded in the lineage of the special operations Jedburgh teams of the past and is produced in partnership with Talent War Group, a management consulting and executive search firm focused on helping you optimize the people side of your business. We're sponsored by Jersey Mike Subs. Together, we share the mission of giving, making a difference in someone's life. Visit the Jedburgh podcast, Talent War Group, and Jersey Mike Subs on the web and on social media. A percentage of all proceeds is dedicated to the Special Operations Warrior Foundation.
I would jog behind them as they were skating and just wait till somebody stopped and ask them if I could borrow their board. And I got really, really good at maximizing 30 seconds of time. And I would crunch down into the 30 seconds what they had spent all day doing. I would just go animalistic on the thing, people always talk I had this aggressive skate style. It probably has its roots right there. Yeah, it's just like, basically I would just thrash. That word thrasher just stuck in my head. I was like, time to thrash, man. Like, get on and go crazy, Well, this went on for months.
Icons exist in every industry, on every team, in any organization. Icons set the example, they develop trends, they lead others as they innovate and drive their communities forward. Many icons, they dominate a single industry, entrepreneurism, athletics, journalism. But some icons, they dominate multiple industries. They leave their mark not just on one part of society, but on all of society. Mike Vallely is this type of icon. I met Mike on the first night of Sandlot Jax in the GORUCK Games. Mike, or Mike V as he's most well known, is the founder of Street Plant Skateboards. He's also the lead singer of punk rock band Blag Flag. Mike is responsible for taking skateboarding mainstream. He revolutionized the way society embraces skateboarding and the skateboarding culture. He led the innovation of the boards themselves because he rode harder and he pushed tricks further than anyone who'd come before him. All the while, he built a side career as a singer. He played with some of the greatest rock and punk artists ever, until he landed his shot with Blag Flag, one of the greatest punk rock bands in history. Mike joined me in the Land Rover ambulance on the last day of the GORUCK Games to share his personal story. He talked about how he had to borrow skateboards to teach himself how to ride, why going as hard as you can whenever you can is a recipe for success, and what he learned leading generations of punk rockers and skateboarders to be the best that they can be. This interview is definitely our longest to date, but I will tell you that it went by the fastest. We had to change GoPro batteries 3 times. I was impressed with Mike's success, but I was more impressed with his passion, his honesty, and his generosity. Check out our videos and our pictures from this episode and the entire Sandlot event on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Find our episodes on our website, jedburghpodcast.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you there. Mike, welcome to the Jedburgh podcast.
Thank you, friends. Good to be here.
We're here. We're in the back of the Land Rover. We're at Sandlot Jax. I met you the other night when we were at the kickoff concert. We had an amazing conversation about where we are in the world today, your career as a musician in skateboarding, the entrepreneurial spirit behind that, how you've changed both of those industries. I sincerely appreciate you taking the time out of the day. It's the last day of the competition, so there's a lot to see up there. But I'm going to stick you in the back of this hot-ass ambulance for the next 45 to 50 minutes, and we're going to talk about your story.
No worries, man. It's an honor to be here. Meeting you the other night was really cool. You sharing a bit of your story with me. It was just so relatable. The transitioning from one life to the next life, and you did it in a very difficult period of time, but I still got it, and it was real. I really felt really blessed that you shared that with me, and I appreciated it.
Well, thank you.
So you asking me to come on the podcast is like, yeah, of course, man. This guy already has opened his heart to me.
Well, thanks. Let's talk about growing up, because I want to take it back to the beginning. Sometimes in these conversations we got to start today, we back it in, but I think it's important for you that we kind of start at the beginning. You're in California now. You grew up though and were born in Edison, New Jersey, which is not far from where I am, because I'm in southern Connecticut. So yeah, certainly different than moving out to California. And you grew up playing baseball, and then you got into skateboarding, and your parents bought you a skateboard and it changed your life. Why?
Well, I mean, I feel like my life before I discovered skateboarding, it doesn't even count. I mean, in the big ways, it doesn't count. There's so many great stories and so many amazing experiences that happened before I started skating. But it's when I started skating that I felt that I actually took my first real breaths, that I actually stepped outside of the prescribed way of life and started living my own life. I played baseball. Right before I started skating, I was actually the main sport that I was involved in was wrestling. And I had been wrestling in junior high and on a rec team, and the high school coach had been sort of scouting me for a little bit. And my junior high coach and my rec coaches liked me. My junior high coach didn't really see any value in me, but the high school coach always did. He thought that these guys were misusing me, mismanaging me, and he always would come to me on the side, I can't wait to get you. Right. I can't wait to get you. And I remember I had started skating already, and I saw him in the school hallway, and he said, first wrestling practice is this week. And I said, oh, coach, I'm not going to wrestle this year. I'm skateboarding.
How do you take that?
He slapped me in the face.
You could do that back then.
Yeah. Well, the coaches always slapped me. I mean, that was like if they wanted to motivate me before a match, they would just smack me in the face, and then I'd go out and terrorize some kid, and I said, and it worked. I was like, okay, I'll be at practice, but it didn't. I had chosen my destiny. Mm-hmm. My destiny was skateboarding. I already knew that in my core, and but like to back it up, it was that same school year, the first day of school. I was walking down the school hallway. I had reinvented myself over the summer of my freshman year of high school. I decided I was going to become a punk rocker. I did not know what punk rock was. I'd seen a few films where there was a minor character that was punk, and I'd seen some videos on MTV where people appeared to look punk. I had determined that I knew that there was something more than what was just on the radio or that was just in the mainstream media. I knew it was out there. I didn't know how to access it, but I knew it was there, and I knew it was for me. Or I knew not even that it was for me, just the idea that there was something else was really meaningful to me. And I wanted to figure out where do you learn about this stuff? I didn't know. So my only move going into high school, my freshman year of high school, was to spike my hair. I just spiked my hair, and
with gel,
dippity doo. I got this jar of dippity doo, and I spiked my hair, and it doesn't sound like that big a deal, but it was radical. In 1984 in Edison, New Jersey, this was a radical move. Considering especially that previous to that moment, I had blended into the gray of the school walls, Now I had stepped outside and painted a target on myself. And so my first day of school, I'm walking down the hallway, and I see some real punk rockers. And I mean, they're the real deal, man. Somehow they got the information. They had accessed it. They knew what was going on. And they saw me, and they surrounded me, and they like a semicircle, and it was very threatening.
Really?
And they said, "Hey, man, are you punk?" And I was like, "Yeah, man." And they're like, "Oh yeah, really? You're punk? Okay, well, what bands do you like?" I didn't know anything.
Oh, shit.
I didn't know anything.
The test question.
Yeah, but I looked at their T-shirts, and one guy had a shirt said Dead Kennedys, so I figured that's a band. And I was like, the Dead Kennedys. He's like, okay, cool. He said, what other bands do you like? And another guy had a shirt said Blag Flag. I said, oh yeah, Blag Flag. Oh, okay, cool. And what other bands do you like? A guy had a shirt that had big, Misfit skull on. It didn't say Misfits. It was just the skull, I think. And I was like, oh, that band with the big skull. And they're like, the Misfits. You like? I was like, yeah. What other bands do you like? Now the other guy had a Three Stooges shirt on, and I knew it was a TV program, but I thought, is it a band too? And I looked at his shirt, and he looked at me, and he's like, he looked at me pleading in his eyes, don't say it.
He was on to you.
Yeah, and I got so it just suddenly became so obvious that I didn't know what I was talking about. And the sort of leader of the group goes, you don't know anything, do you? And I said, nah, man. He goes, that's cool. Come with us. That's awesome. Cool. come with us. The fucking coolest words ever spoken to me, man. And they took me right in. And that day after school, I went to this guy's house, and I went down in his basement, and he had like better than any movie set director has ever created. His basement punk rock bedroom was insane. Like, it was like, you know, it was like holy shit, the posters, the musical instruments, the skateboards, all the stuff all over the place. It was just like somebody set this up. And I went in there, and he's like, we're going to make you a mixtape. Him and his buddy, they started working on, they put some vinyl on, they started recording songs.
That was when we still had tapes.
Yeah. And he's like, and hey, dude, you got to lose those spikes, man. And he sat me down, and he shaved my head. Just
really?
With clippers, just buzzed my hair off. And it was really difficult, so I had so much dippity-do. It was like, he basically tore the hair out of my head, you know?
It's like concrete up there.
Yeah. And so they gave me this mixtape, shaved my head, and then they tell me, you gotta get a skateboard, man. And I was like, and I had seen skateboarding before.
Had you ever skateboarded?
Not at all. A kid I'd hung out with over the previous summer had a plastic kind of toy skateboard, and I had stood on that with him, and we had tried to skate it, but we had no real frame of reference for what we were doing. We were just kind of pushing around town. And previous to that, I had tried skateboarding like in 6th grade, but the streets in my town were so rough, and the wheels, they weren't, now I know they weren't good wheels.
Right.
But I tried to skate on the street, and my teeth were rattling, and the vibrations were going up through my legs, and I was just like, this isn't even fun.
Yeah.
So I just never pursued it. But these guys were like, you gotta get a skateboard. And I was like, I had always seen skateboarding as something like, I didn't have the right entry point ever. But I knew it spoke to me. It had previously spoken to me, but there's something about the energy at this time that was like more like this is now real. Like skateboarding, like the way that they talked about it and the way that they were presenting it to me, I was like, this is important stuff. And I identified that something in me that is feeling like they're right. I got to get a skateboard. So I said, well, I don't know anything about skateboarding. And the one guy who shaved my head and made me the mixtape, he's like, hey man, you got to talk to my brother. My brother knows everything about skateboarding, and he's got all of the skateboard magazines. And I said, skateboard magazines? Would they have skateboard magazines? Like, really? And he's like, yeah, it's called Thrasher. And I was like, Thrasher? That's amazing. Like, Thrasher. It's like, if you never heard the word before, suddenly it was like a word that totally made sense. Like Thrasher. Suddenly, because I had thought skateboarding was like super tan dudes without shirts on, barefoot, like doing 360s or like cruising down by the beach. There was always palm trees in the visions. And suddenly he said Thrasher, and I was like, "That I understand that. Like Thrasher, that's not California necessarily. Right. That's anywhere." I had a deeper understanding, just the word itself, like opened my mind up. And I was like, I got to get into this, man. So his brother is a little bit younger. He was a year younger than me. And I knew his brother from around town, and he didn't like me. He never liked me. We'd never been in any fights or anything, but there'd always been like, just neighborhood stuff. Like,
tension.
Yeah, it's like, I don't like that guy. He don't like me. But I was like, water under the bridge. This dude's got Thrasher magazine.
We're boys now.
Yeah. I'm going to go pay him a visit. So I go to his house, and I knock on his door, and he comes to the door. This is like the next day after school, and he's like, hey, my brother's not here. I go, I'm not here to see your brother. I'm here to see Thrasher magazine. And he's like, why? I go, because I got to see Thrasher magazine. And he's like, like it's just such a bother that I'm there, He's like, okay, well, hold on a second. And he goes back into his house, and he comes back to the door, and I'm standing outside of a screen door. He's standing on the inside of the screen door, and he holds up the magazine, and he starts turning the pages.
Oh, he won't let you touch it.
I can't touch it. I can't even be in the same room as it. There's a barrier.
Yeah. Stay on that threshold over there.
And like I said, my frame of reference for what skateboarding was like people doing 360s or handstands, barefooted or something. And suddenly I'm seeing pictures of guys in the air off of ramps, The boards are big, and they have amazing artwork on them, but you know, the pages are going by so fast. I'm just like, my mind's getting blown with every page, but he won't stop. It's just like, you know. And then he gets to the middle of the magazine, and there's an article in the middle of the magazine about this sort of newer sort of style of skating called street skating, or at the time it was called street style. And this is like, I call this a sort of over the rainbow moment, because the 360s on the beach under the palm trees, barefooted, not really relatable. Guys in the air on big ramps, not really relatable, but very exciting. But suddenly, pictures of guys skating in an environment that was right in front of me, right outside his back door that I was standing at. And this was like, my life before that moment was in black and white or sepia tone, and then I saw these pictures of guys skating in the streets, using an environment and obstacles that were everyday, stairs and benches and ledges and cars and walls, curbs. This was like my life. It suddenly blew wide open. It was like, you know, right into full-blown Technicolor. You know, boom, and he's turning the pages super fast, and I see a guy flying in the air. Looks like he's just flying over a cop car or something, and I was like, whoa, and I go, he's over the. He goes, he's jumping off the car, and I said, I could do that. He says, no, you can't, man. This guy's a professional. You can't do that. I say, I could do that, man. And he's like, oh, really? And he puts the magazine down. He goes back into his house, and he comes walking out with his skateboard. and the only board I'd ever stood on was a plastic toy store skateboard
with your teeth rattling.
Yeah, and he comes out with this full-size pro model Christian Hosoi Rising Sun Sim skateboard. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And he puts it in my hand. He's like, well, then do it. And right at the top of his driveway is his grandfather's car. And I was like, okay. So I walk over there, I climb on top of the car, and I jump off the car and try to land on the skateboard. And I eat shit, man. I like fully slam forward. I've been skating for a long time. My leading elbow, my left elbow, has seen most of the damage that could be dished out. And this was the first time. I just piled right into the asphalt. I mean, his driveway was, you know, it was paved, but it was a gravel pit, really. Yeah. I mean, it was loose, you know. It was very unforgiving. And, you know, I had, like, pieces of asphalt stuck in my arm, little dots of blood all over the place, one main cut that just started bleeding. And he looked at me like, holy shit. And
You're crazy.
I got up and I was like, okay, I fell forward. So if I adjust my weight, you know, I started trying to calculate how to do this. I got back up on the car, and he's like, look at me, I can't believe you're doing this again. And I jump again, and I fall backwards this time. I kind of do a Wilson, and the board shoots out. And I was like, okay, that's too far back. Now I've got to try to find that middle part. And I tried like 5, 10, 15 times maybe. And then I land one. I land it, and I ride down his driveway. And this kid, one of the reasons I had never really liked him and had never seen eye to eye with him, because he was always the sort of collector of cool. He just knew, like, he had Thrasher magazine. He knew about this stuff. How? Wasn't accessible to a common kid like me, right? But he always had that kind of, like, he was sort of above all of us, and that's, you know, it's like, that's irritating, you know. But as long as I've known him, he's always been he's just cool. But this was the one moment I saw him come unhinged when I landed that, jumped off his grandfather's car. He was like, oh my, he started jumping up and down. He couldn't believe it.
He's excited.
His experience with skateboarding to that moment was the pictures in the magazine. And suddenly he just saw it happen live in front of his eyes. And he was just like, you're a skater, you're a skater. And he's like, okay, you got to come with me. I'm going to introduce you to the other skaters. And I was like, other skaters? Like, there's more than just you and me now? He's like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of guys that skate. I had no idea that any of this was happening in my town. and we go across town, and the whole way across town we're sharing his board. We're skating, and then I'm picking the board up and finding stuff to jump off of. I'm jumping off of everything, you know. And
Wait, are you landing them?
some yeah. So, I mean, dude. I mean, as we were moving through town, I was getting better.
Yeah.
I was figuring it out. And we get to this parking lot, and it's basically just a big, wide open parking lot. Great place to skate, but it's just brand new pavement. There's probably like 10 kids skating in the parking lot. But there's nothing else around. So we get there, and as we're walking up, the other kids see him coming, and he's their friend, and then they see me, and we've never been friends, and I'm not friends with them. I don't know them necessarily, but they know who I am because just like I said,
small town
stuff around the neighborhood, and they're looking at him like, "What are you doing, bringing that dude here?" You know, and he's like, "No, it's cool. You got to see what he can do," And so he hands me the board, and there's nothing to jump off of, so I just kind of run and jump into the air and land on it. And no one seems impressed. Like, he really thought this was going to land big, and I thought so too. Like, this was my in. But apparently, between the day before, when he'd been hanging out with them, and today, the best other local skater in town, this little kid, had already learned to do it. He could run and jump and land on the board. So when I did it, the little kid comes over and he's like, pfft, and he just kind of skates over and he runs, he jumps, and he makes eye contact with me while he's doing it, like, you ain't nothing, right? Like, I was presented as a challenger to his throne,
right,
and then it was just like, nah, dude, you're back at the bottom of the stairs, you know? And what I thought was my entry point into like a peer group and a subculture, I was suddenly just standing there, and then they all were skating, and they paid no attention to me. I was just standing there.
Because you didn't have a board.
I didn't have a board.
Yeah.
I was just standing there. And so I stood around for a while, and the kid I jumped off his grandfather's car, and he had been celebrating me like a half hour before, he didn't even look at me now. And I was like, oh, man. And I'm just hanging out, and one kid finally sits down. I was like, can I try your board? And he's like, ah. And the big thing at that time in the 80s was like, no one wanted their board scratched.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, don't scratch it, man. Like, pushes it over him, you know. What we actually find out is that they're meant to be scratched. Yeah. You know? But at that time, everyone had like plastic rails, plastic nose guard, plastic tail guard, and they were really wanted to protect the art on the bottom. That was really like, you know, which I understand, the art is beautiful, but they're meant to be destroyed. Anyway, but these kids were like, don't scratch it. That was their whole big thing. Don't scratch it, man. So I get on it, and I realized like I'm probably have a limited amount of time with this skateboard.
Right.
So as soon as I got on it, I was like animalistic.
Yeah, you gotta go
I
now.
just like, yeah. So I was just like going crazy, and it was like a puppy getting let loose out of a cage. Like, it's cute for like 5 seconds, and it's like, wrangle that thing up. You know, it's going crazy. You know. So he's like, give me my board back. You know, and I was like, okay. So and then I hung out until the evening, and it was just kind of like that. I tried to ask if I could use someone's board. They'd push it over, don't scratch it. I'd go crazy for 20 seconds. They'd take it back, you know, yeah, you know, get out of here, dude. So, and so that became like, that became my whole mission. I was just, I would literally every day after school go and just stand around while these guys skated. And then they started moving through town. They'd skate from point A to point B. I would jog behind them as they were skating and just wait till somebody stopped and asked them if I could borrow their board. And I got really, really good at maximizing 30 seconds of time. And I would crunch down into the 30 seconds what they had spent all day doing. I would just go animalistic on the thing, you know, just, and my people always talk I had this aggressive skate style. It probably has its roots right there. Yeah, it's just like, you know, basically I would just thrash. That word thrasher just stuck in my head. I was like, it's time to thrash, man. Like, get on and go crazy, you know. And so this went on for months. My parents, the very first day that I got into skating, I went home and I told my parents, like, hey, I got to get a skateboard. And they were like, no way.
Yeah, they're
totally against it. They saw it as sort of like a pointless activity, and also they were just concerned about me getting hurt. You know, it just seemed like if you get hurt playing sports, there's some honor in that. You get hurt doing something that has no end game and that seems pointless, like, That's just stupid.
Well, because at that point, skateboarding wasn't as big as it is today. It hadn't become. So
It was in 1984. That's when the growth cycle really began. It was starting to explode. That's how we even became aware of it in Edison, New Jersey, is because there was, the magazine existed, the pros, Tony Hawk and Steve Caballero and Christian Soy, and they had started to bleed out from Southern California, and it was really attractive to kids all over the country, all over the world. But it was still so new, no one really knew much about it. And so my parents were they're just being my parents,
Yeah, they're kind of
just being my parents.
Slamming your face into the
Yeah, but I basically explained it to them that this was really important to me. Now, a lot of things had been really important to me through my childhood, and I had a bicycle rusting in the backyard, and
oh yeah.
And so they've been down that road before.
That was my 12-year-old daughter. Oh, here's all the stuff you never used.
Yeah. So they've been down that road before, but I give my parents a lot of credit at the same time. They were very aware that there was something different in my voice and in my posture and in my body language and my attitude, and they were very against it. But they also realized if we don't help facilitate this, he's going to do it anyway, right. And then it's going to be a bone of contention between us. So my parents, they were really good at being parents, and they were really good at being parents,
Yep.
And so they said, okay, like if we made a deal that didn't stick on my end about grades and all this other stuff, we'll get you a skateboard,
Yeah.
So that's kind of like I didn't get the skateboard until Christmas morning, and that's a whole other story. But the skateboard was actually delivered. I mail ordered it from California. It was delivered like in November. But my mom put it in the closet and wouldn't let me have it till Christmas morning. So I spent
all that time you had to chase these kids.
Yeah, I was just running around and maximizing my 30 seconds. But when I finally got my own board on Christmas morning, that was it. It was like, now I could skate as much as I wanted, and I did. I skated more than anybody I've ever known of. I skated before school in the morning. I skated to school. Between class passing, I would open my locker, pull my skateboard out and stand on it, put it back. I'd skate during lunch. I'd skate after school. I'd skate meet up with the other skaters and skate with them, go home for dinner, skate after dinner, skate until it was bedtime. After bed, I'd sneak out of my house and I'd skate. I'd sleep with my skateboard. And suddenly the kid that was irritating and a pain in the ass and bothering the other skaters and looked like a fool running behind them and begging for the skateboard. Suddenly, I was skating so much that I surpassed all of them in ability on a skateboard, like immediately. Like I went from, and the sort of quality of the character that I had, that whatever it is in me that made me jump off the car without ever even knowing what I was doing, also played a big role in my skating moving past other people's very quickly.
Yeah.
There was plenty of other kids that were skating at the time that were so much more what you would say athletically gifted or talented. I don't know about gift. I think we choose to develop these things, but
Right.
but some people do seem to have a knack for things athletically over others, and some of these kids were like really good athletes to begin with, and skating looked like it came kind of easy to them. But I think my more wild style approach was more beneficial than just athletic talent. I had enough athleticism, but it was mixed with enough imagination and fearlessness that made my skating unique, even at the very beginning in my neighborhood.
And then a couple of years later, you get seen in the parking lot, and then that's when the opportunity to actually become a professional skater kicks in.
Yeah, I was really lucky. I was really lucky that first day meeting those guys in the school hallway and them saying, come with us. And then I also, in the first few months of getting into skating, even before I had my own board, I had mail ordered my board because not my skateboard friends, but my punk rock friends encouraged me to go that route because that's how they all had gotten their boards. And they had a friend that was kind of it seemed like a racket now, but he was like, I'll mail order your board for you, you know, like I just got pressured to go that route.
Low price at $9.99.
But it turned out that there was a skate shop a couple towns over from us. It was like a roller skate shop that had carried skateboards, but it was like, for the time, that would be like sort of a core retailer for skateboarding.
Yeah.
And we went in there pretty early on just to browse and look around, and the people in there were so rude to us. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, I'll never buy something from these people. I'll never spend my money here. And then we heard about another skate shop at the Woodbridge Mall in Woodbridge, New Jersey, but it was like a California culture store, so it was like a bikini store. It was called Freestyle, and I had walked past that store many times in the mall, and I had never seen the skateboards, and I'd never gone in there because I just see bikinis, and as a preteen or teenager, I just wouldn't even look.
It's not quite your thing.
Yeah, I was like,
You're looking the other way.
And we heard like, freestyle carries skateboards. So we went in there. This is like, in the autumn of '84, before I had my own board. We went in there, and we walked in with our eyes like glued to the ground because we didn't want, like, we're walking past the bikini racks, where are the skateboards? Like, we wouldn't lift our eyes until we actually saw wood, and as we're walking in, there's this big, much bigger than us and older black dude with he looked like a new wave rocker, man. Like, he had like these glasses that had like wing tips, and he had a flat top that extended out and kind of curved up a little bit. Like, he looked like he could have been in like some cool band or something, and that was very intimidating too. Like, we're like, oh, who's this guy? Like, is he gonna be an asshole like the guys at the skate shop that we were previously in? And he's like, what's up, guys? Where are you from? We're like, we're from Edison. He's like, oh, man, cool. He's like, oh, what bands you listening to? Oh, where you been skating? You got spots? I was in California a couple years. He starts immediately just interacting with us. And we realized right away, this guy knows skateboarding. Like, he knows it more than just being well-read in a magazine. Right. He's actually skated the old skate parks. He's been to California. He's been around professionals. He knows skateboarding from the mid-'70s on. And he's cool, and he's a nice guy, and he actually appears to care about us, punk ass kids in his store, And that guy became an immediate friend of ours, and became my mentor. His name is Rodney Smith, and he had a car, and he knew other skaters in other towns, and suddenly, we're in the backseat of his car, zipping around, going to go skate, and he's showing us the ropes. And he took a particular interest in me, especially once I had my own board. Right. He really thought, like, he really encouraged me. He really, like, told me, like, you can do it. Because street skating was so young. It was so new. And so even though there had been people that had been, pioneering street skating, really kids all over the entire world were also participating in the pioneering of street skating. Right. It wasn't like it was such a new phenomenon, and we took to it so quickly because we had the environment right outside our doors. Right. And so he sort of saw immediately in me that he believed I had the potential to, like, make a difference outside of just my local area, but to potentially become a sponsored or professional skater. And so he took an active role in sort of mentoring me. And he was a good skater, but he wasn't a great skater. But he knew skateboarding, and he had some people are just born teachers, like he could help me with my skating even if he couldn't do what I was doing. He knew how to, like, help me. Hey, if you want to land that, he gave me pointers, and it was just looked out for me too, because the culture has always wanted to skew itself into some negative behavior. Oh, sorry. The culture's always skewed. It just starts leaning negative, and it's real easy to get caught up in that. Right. And he'd be like, no, you skate. It's about the act. Yeah. The other stuff's noise. You don't pay attention to that. And he would, like,
well, that stuff's distracting.
Yeah, he would be very, like, he would get very parent-like with me. Like, no, Michael. He's the only one that got away with calling me Michael. No, Michael, you're better than that. you're better than that. Like, you know, get away from the clowns, you know.
Right.
And so so that was really, really important early on, and right up into you know, that led up to me getting sponsored, really. And he was there when I got sponsored, and that was, you know, I started skating in September of 1984. Got my first board Christmas morning 1984, and June 1986 I got sponsored. I got on the Bones Brigade.
Damn. Oh, and you were putting the work in. I want to ask about skateboard design, because I mean, from there, you know, you launch into this professional career, which defines, I mean, so much, you know, the rest of your life. And we're going to talk about music in a minute, but skateboard design has come a long way, and you were very instrumental in kind of crafting what the next generation of skateboard design looked like. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, well, in the mid '80s, most of the skateboards that were being manufactured were the names on them were Hawk and Caballero and Phillips and Hosoi and McGill, and these guys skated ramps. And the boards sold really well, and they had really amazing artwork on them. But as we took these boards into the streets, we realized they had some limitations. And the boards that were being manufactured, even though they were selling great, those of us that were really starting to try to push the envelope saw that, like, oh, the nose needs to be bigger, or the wheelbase needs to be shorter, or whatever it was, you know, or this board's too wide. Skating was advancing faster in the streets than it was on the manufacturing end of things. And so at one point, I just determined I needed a bigger nose. I just needed a bigger nose on my board, and I drilled the nose back. Or had someone do it for me, because I can't do anything like, you know. But we had a good skate shop opened up in our town, and there's really, really good guys that owned it. Older guys, they weren't skaters, but they owned a hunting and fishing store, and then they started carrying skateboards, and then they became real advocates for skateboarding, and they were just good dudes. Yeah. And I was like, I need a bigger nose, and the guy, old like World War II vet that was like building the boards, he's like, Mike, I'll drill that, you know. This guy Tony, he was great, man. So he helped me with that kind of stuff. You know, he was, I mean, some older guy, someone's grandpa was tinkering with skateboard design in a skate shop. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because the need was there, and the kids were saying, hey, we need this, and he was helping me. And so Stacy Peralta, who's, you know, was our team leader on the Bones Brigade, he saw my board one time with the nose drilled back, and he's like, hey, man, what's this? I go, I need a bigger nose, because I was doing tricks off the nose or onto the nose, and the boards before that, you know, inch or 2 inch nose, they were that you couldn't use the nose in that way, and he got mad, but it wasn't mad at me. He was mad that he realized exactly what I said earlier, that what we were doing in the streets was progressing faster than they could keep up as a manufacturer, and that. What I know now that I've had the perspective and been doing this a long time, he knew that was going to be problematic. He knew that the next thing in skating was going to come from us, and that it wasn't controllable. And suddenly, like, that's hard. That's hard when you're running a business, and suddenly, you know, the inmates are running the asylum. You know, he would get ahead of it. You know, I guess I have a I could just sense he was like, he's a very bright guy, very, you know, wide-eyed, and he gets it all. And I also, like, I sensed his frustration, you know, even if I couldn't have articulated it then or totally understood it, I knew, like, oh, this is a problem. Like, this just presented a major problem to this guy. Right. Well, the problem would come to a head in less than like a year from then. You know, I left the team, and Rodney Mona and myself left the team at the exact same time, and we went over and became part of a startup company called World Industries, which we both were given. Rodney bought in. I was just given ownership because I was a young, hot skater, and it would be a good
face.
Yeah, it'd be good. It's a good look, you know. And we started developing products that, you know, they were able to do things quicker, turn them around faster, get them to the market, and it was exciting. And it was kids, skaters, could grasp it. It wasn't the old, it was the new. And it was just happening in the moment.
Yeah.
And Powell-Peralta, they were still making Mike McGill boards with 2-inch noses, you know, and it just changed overnight. And that's around the time that I mean, my first board from Powell-Peralta is considered really one of the first boards built for street skating, but it still had some limitations to it because they didn't honor all of the things I wanted to do with that board because they thought that, you know, they knew better, that, you know, it was important that they established that we're the manufacturer, you're the skater, which was a mistake.
Right.
I mean, they would probably say that now. It was a mistake. Like
it's like customer feedback. You take customer feedback.
Yeah, and so my board, I wanted a bigger nose on my production model board, and it didn't have it because it wasn't proven in the marketplace yet.
Right.
But it was proven in the streets, and that's what made World Industries happen so fast. Is that they took what was proven in the streets and adapted that immediately to their business model. And so it was exciting for me. I got to be like, suddenly I was like in a position to be. I was involved in a company, and I was a top skater at the time.
Right.
And out of that we developed a board that was called the Barnyard, and a lot of people, it's really like. You know, celebrated skateboard. It's considered like the granddaddy of the modern skateboard, because that board was intended to be basically a large freestyle board, intended to be symmetrical, intended to have a large nose and be ridden in both directions. And no board before that was built with the same intention. There's all kinds of in the core of skateboarding, there's lots of people argue about this stuff. Oh no, the double vision came first, and but all that really matters is that this is the board that actually stuck,
right,
and that was celebrated, and it wasn't just the shape of the board. It was a revolution in so many different ways. It was a revolution in the art.
Yeah,
there had never been art like this on a skateboard before. The shape was shaped by Rodney Mullen, who was a freestyler, and he was putting his fingerprint on street skating, and he would go on to become one of the most famous street skaters as well. And also the fact that as a skater, I had left the biggest manufacturer in the business and gone over to this company, become an owner of this company, and was putting my chin out front with a sort of radical design in art and shape. I was like pushing it forward. Like they could have put someone else's name on the board at the time, and it wouldn't have made any difference. It would have just been a flop, perhaps. But it was who I was, where I was, and all those other elements added to it that made the board, you know. And so that's where and I've played a role in skateboard design ever since. I still, like, my favorite thing about running my own skateboard company is shaping boards and trying to come up with cool, unique stuff.
I want to ask you about the artwork, because the artwork, as you mentioned, in the Barnyard was revolutionary, but there's also an aspect of creativity. And I bring it up because we're fortunate to have a conversation several months ago in the lead up to the Olympics with a guy named Lucas Foster. He was on the U.S. Olympic snowboard team, rookie on the team. So four guys went on the men's team to the Olympics, and it was his first year. But he grew up in Telluride with no half pipe.
Yeah.
And he had to go find the half pipe to be able to compete, operate at that elite level. But he was a skateboarder first, and he was very influenced by skateboarding. Snowboarding is very influenced by skateboarding writ large and in general. But the conversation we had was about creativity, and how something like skateboarding and something like snowboarding, and then also when you talk about board design, when you talk about the artwork that goes on these, it's all about the athlete. And I think in skateboarding and in snowboarding, certainly an athlete who's there, but it allows them to represent themselves and to express themselves in a certain way. Can you talk a bit about the importance of bringing that expression of your own creativity into your style?
Well, if all of my early boards, they're highly collectible, and they're celebrated as important. They're all celebrated as important. This is an important skateboard. Why? Because it was like putting out a record. It was like you put everything into it. The board represented you in a broad way. It wasn't just like a name on a skateboard. It was, my first board from Powell-Peralta featured an African elephant. Many people consider it the greatest skateboard graphic of all time. Why? Because the story behind getting that African elephant on that board is insane. They wanted to give me some art that I couldn't relate to, that didn't come from me. It wasn't my idea, and it would have been convenient for them to do whatever they wanted, so they could just keep me under their thumb. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just like they were the manufacturer. I was the young skater. Go skate. Yeah. We'll take care of this end.
Employer-employee relationship.
Yeah, and it's really like I stood up for myself, and I stood up for the vision I had for my own life and career as a very young person against people who I idolized. They were my heroes, but I wasn't going to take what I was being handed. I had to have it my way. And by the way, those same people are what had inspired that attitude in me, right? So it was a very, very difficult dynamic. It was very hard to go through as a young person, but also very integral to who I am, right? So they're like, well, here's your graphic. I was like, that's not my graphic. I'm 16. That's not my graphic. Like, what do you mean that's not your graphic? No, I told you I want an African elephant. Well, the artist doesn't want to draw an African elephant, so you got to take the cockroach. I was like, I don't want a cockroach. It looks cool. It's a great board. It's not my board.
Yeah.
And they're just looking at me like, who the hell do you think you are? And
why do you want the African elephant?
I'd seen a television program, like a National Geographic program about African elephants, and I just had stumbled upon it flipping through the channels one night, and it just, at that time, African elephants were in danger of being extinct, and which I'd never thought about anything like that in my life before. Nothing had ever, there'd been no previous moment of where someone said, oh, we should care about animals or anything like that. Nothing. Not one moment. But I saw this thing, and I just thought to myself, that's wrong. That's wrong. And I don't even know that the program was ultimately trying to force me to think that way or not. They were just saying, this is what's happening. And I said, that's wrong. That is absolutely wrong. And I thought, like, what kind of world would we be living in if we would allow this animal to leave it? Like, it just seemed so wrong to me. And it was the first time I had any idea of, like, animal rights. I wouldn't even know how to frame that. Right. I just thought, like, I want to put an African elephant on my board to remind people that some things are sacred. It's important. It's important. And if the animal does go away, I still want it on my board because, like, I want it as a memory. Like, this existed, in our lifetime. We saw these things. If just on TV. I actually got to see them in real life too later in life, which was amazing.
I spent like 2 years in Africa.
Yeah. So it was, it was a sort of innocent radicalism that came over me, like, just like I got like hard-headed about it and I wouldn't budge. And the company was just like, they kept trying to feed me different things, and my board would have come out a lot sooner, but it was contentious for so long, and no resolve till one day, the artist VCJ, he's like the great Powell-Peralta artist. He did all of the classic graphics, and they tried to give me a different artist at some point. Well, VCJ doesn't want to draw elephants, so this guy. So they started having other people. I was like, no, I knew. See, I had the very unique perspective. I became a part of the team, but I had previously been a fan. Mm-hmm. I'm the only skater that got on the team and that has a classic graphic and that is considered part of that generation of skaters. I mean, I have my own sort of generation, but those people embrace me. I'm part of their thing, even though I came later. but I'm the only one of them that was a fan. They did it together.
Right.
They came together. I was a fan, and then I became a part of them. And so they all wanted new artists and new ideas. And I was like, no, I want what you guys have. It was classic to me already. It was all so new to them that skateboarding was exploding and that it was reaching out into the world that they just kept wanting to go forward, and they didn't care about the graphic. It was like, I'll do a new graphic. Oh, this other company used a different style of art. We think that's cooler. We should do that. I was like, no, VCJ. VCJ, classic graphics.
It's the best.
It's the best. But they didn't have the same perspective. That's what I'm trying to say. They were just in a different zone. I was a fan of it and a participant. So I fought. So one day, after all of this stuff, they're trying different artists, and I'm saying no. I'm being so hard headed. Like it's like they're really like at the last straw. Yeah. Who does this kid think he is? And in other ways, I was getting. There was a lot of my peers that I thought their egos had gone crazy. Skateboarding was exploding, and the events were getting bigger, and the skate fans were acting weirder, and the industry was. It just seemed. I had such an idealistic idea about what it was, and then it suddenly I saw it was just business, and so I really was developing a chip on my shoulder about the whole thing. Like, I loved skating so much that I thought maybe the best thing is not to be a pro skater, because my idea of being a pro skater was to positively promote skating, but I felt like the industry was now in the way of my enjoyment of skating.
Right.
So I was difficult in so many ways, especially about the graphic. And then one day I was in New Jersey and I got a FedEx tube sent to me, and I opened it up, and it was a drawing of an elephant with a Post-it note from VCJ on it, and it said, "You are right," or "You were right. You were right." And I was like, whoa. So I immediately called the company, and I talked to my team manager, Todd Hastings, and I go, "What's going on, man? I got this FedEx thing." And he said, "You won't believe what's going on over here, man. VCJ has sequestered himself in the art room. He kicked everyone else out. He's got the windows covered. We can't see in. And there's drawings of elephants everywhere." And I was like, wow. And then over time, over a couple months, I would get another drawing sent to me. And he said, "This isn't it, but close." And there was just so many different variations of elephant themes and graphics. Right. And then right before Christmas of, this would be Christmas of '87, I got another drawing sent to me, and he said, "This is it." And it was it. I mean, it was clear, this is it.
Yeah.
The board, it took a while for the board to come out. The board didn't come out till like summer of '88. But yeah, I mean, it was like, I fought for that. So sort of get back to the original question. That's why that board matters so much to me, but that's why because it mattered so much to me, it matters to other people.
Right.
And every board that I put out since then was the same intent, the same energy. Yeah. Like I said, it was like putting out a record, right? And then in the early mid 90s, that all sort of started to change. I still tried to have a fingerprint on everything I was doing, but the industry sort of went generic. Board shapes became generic. Graphics, the company I was skating for a while did away with pro models, and it was just just company label boards. And then when I returned to having a pro model, like in the late 90s, I had my last pro model that was like a design that represented what I wanted to represent. A few years later, I signed with Element Skateboards, and when I signed with them, I licensed my name to them, and I had no control over any skateboard graphic.
Now they're just putting your name on it.
It's boom. Yeah. Just and it was important to them that I had no control, because what I had done in 1987 and '88 was open a can of worms that every pro skater
They were all doing it.
I was the example.
Yeah.
And then by the early 2000s, when skateboarding sales were booming, we can't afford to have these dudes coming in and dictating what they want on their boards. We need to knock out a new graphic every couple months. Like, we can't, it was just like turn and burn. It's just like, we're going to put your name on whatever we want to put. So I would go into skate shops throughout the early 2000s, and people would be like, "Oh, we got your new model." And I'd look up, I go, "Oh, that's my new model."
Looks great.
I had no connection to it.
Right.
There's no soul. So sometimes, everyone's first board is important to them, but I'll have people like email me like, "Hey, I started skating in 2004. I got your." They'll tell me the name of the model. I don't know what that means. Say, "Do you know where I can find one?" I'm like, "I don't even know what it is, dude.
Right.
I don't even know what you're talking about." But when I started my company, it was a purposeful return to being very very sincere and earnest in creating boards that had a heart and a soul.
And you started Street Plant without outside funding, totally internal, family.
Yeah. Because since the early '90s, I'd been in and out of so many different business deals as a quote unquote part owner of a company. Yeah. What I found out is that really those kind of arrangements they just hand you some sort of ego inflating piece of paper that says you own something, but you don't, and all they ever really wanted was just to use my name for as long as they could extract some money out of it, right, and go skate. I didn't. As early '90s on, I thought I needed to segue out of professional skating, and I wanted to be on the other side. I wanted to be. But no one saw value really in me stepping away from skating. It was there was always more value to them, and probably ultimately, if I reflect on it, it was more value to me to being on my board. But it didn't. None of those situations ever played out in any kind of positive way. And so when we decided to start Street Plant, it was like the end of the line. Like I'd already done it all. I'd been in every possible business scenario that you could be in as a professional skater, and I ultimately decided that if I'm going to do this and it's real, and I'm going to use the Street Plant name, which is a name that that's mine. That's me.
Where'd it come from?
Oh, it's the trick that I sort of pioneered when I started out, and it also represents. It represents my idealistic or philosophic view of skating, is that what we did as street skaters when street skating started, it was breathing life into a dead space. It was utilizing an environment in a way it had never been used before. It was that flower breaking up through a piece of concrete or asphalt. It was like beauty in an inanimate environment. It was life in an inanimate environment. And the trick itself, the Street Plant, was what I was known for early on, and so it was so personal to me, the name, that I realized like I can't have investors, and I can't have partners, and I can't have distributors. I can't have anybody that's going to potentially, put the nail in this thing's coffin. It's like, if that happens, it's got to be all me.
Yeah,
it's got to be all me. But I didn't have any money. The money had run out many years before.
The hardest part of starting the business.
Yeah, and so I didn't really know. Like I was so afraid. I was so unsure of what to do. I had no confidence in myself. I'd lost all of it. As I lost my money and I lost my career, I also lost my confidence in myself. I lost my total identity of who I was. I couldn't call on anything I had previously done to go, oh, that's who I am. I just didn't. I was just lost at sea, completely lost at sea. And what I found out is like, well, really what I did is I jumped off of a cruise ship. I'd left the party and thought I could make it on my own. But it turns out you jump off the ship, the water's like cement. You break into a million tiny little pieces. Yeah. And then if you somehow can get to shore, then you have to start all over, you know? And there I was on the shore, and I thought I was alone. And then the most amazing thing happened. My kids, my wife, the people who I love and who love me, they said, "You're not alone. We could do this together." And I was like, what the? You know, like I'd never pushed skating on my family. Like, of course I did. It was my career, but I tried to leave it. When I came off the road, I came back from an event, I was a dad. I was a husband. And I wasn't a skateboarder, you know? I was just there. And so, although they had access to it and front row seats to a lot of it, it was never... the culture never penetrated their lives in a negative way. It was just like, this is what dad did, you know? Right. So I never expected, you know, I wanted my kids to live their own lives. Skateboarding was not supposed to be a part of anything they were going to be interested in. But my oldest daughter, Emily, she had just finished school, and she's like, "Dad, do you think these other people that own or run companies are smarter than you?" I was like, "Yeah, pretty much I do." She's like, "Well, they're not." You know,
she was right.
Yeah, they're not. So, like, if you need help, I'll help you. Like, I went to school for this stuff, you know, like, and so, I mean, that's all I really needed was a little help and a little encouragement and someone to believe in me. And that made the biggest difference. And so, so again, I had no money. I was like, "You got any money?" Like, no, she didn't have any money
She's
either.
like, "No, you spent all that sending me to college."
but one thing I had was, you know, a name in the sport and some goodwill. And so I made one phone call to a manufacturer who I'd worked with through the years and had always had a good relationship with. And I said, "Hey, if I bought some boards, could I have like 30 days to pay you back?" He's like, "I really don't do terms." He's like, "What are you thinking?" I said, "Well, I got this concept for this company, and me and my family are going to run it ourselves out of our house." Because he was also concerned about, like, well, who are you working with? Like, who, you know, what shady people are you bringing? You know what I mean? I was like, "None. It's me. It's me and Ann. You know us and our kids." He's like, "Okay, well, okay, we could do that." And he gave me the 30 days. I paid him back in 15, you know, and we were off and running. Yeah, we were off and running.
The whole time you're building and moving through your career in skateboarding, you have this almost parallel world of music. And we were joking before we started about getting kicked out of your first band because you were skateboarding too much. But really, it starts to come to fruition. You get introduced to Blag Flag in 2003, and then 2013. I have to ask the question because there's, you know, I don't know much about the story, but how do you end up firing someone mid-show?
Well,
and taking over.
Okay, well, let's get to that.
And I know there's probably a backstory.
Well, first off, I've wherever you read some of this stuff, I probably have said numerous times I got kicked out of my first band for skating too much. It's actually an unfair thing to say because. The guys in the band, we had this band called Resistance. There had been a singer in the band before me. The guy who's the singer in the band before me, he's the guy who mail ordered my board, my first board. Okay. He was great front man for a band, but he was really like wild and totally unpredictable. And the guys in the band, they were serious musicians. It wasn't just like, "Oh yeah, we're just a local punk band." They really wanted to do something real with the band, and
like you did with skateboarding.
They were ambitious. And you know, if you put the word ambitious in front of skateboarding or ambitious in front of punk rock music, then suddenly like that's an oxymoron. No, it's not. Yeah. Like, why would you not be ambitious?
Right.
Why do anything, you know? But anyway, you know, the culture says, oh, you were ambitious? Oh, man, that's lame. You know? Take a hike, you know? But these guys were ambitious, and the singer was, he was great, but he was unpredictable, and they had they wanted to replace him. And I was like, I loved it. They were my friends, and the band was great. I was like, I want the opportunity. I was only 15, and they're like, yeah, a little young, but I went in for a tryout, and my energy and enthusiasm.
Had you sang like
outside
of the shower?
No, I mean I've been in chorus and stuff, but I was horrible. I'm just horrible. But they were like, yeah, this is cool, man. Like, yeah, we could do this, And I was like, cool. So they actually had a show booked, and the show, they were opening up for the bands 7 Seconds and Aggression, and it was it was a big show for our area, and we were the opener. And the night of the show, I was grounded. And
what'd you do?
I don't remember. But what I do remember is I had to sneak out of my house. And I had to run 2 towns over to play the show. So I snuck out of my house, and I ran from Edison through Highland Park into New Brunswick to the venue, ran up the stairs just in time to perform the set. The set went great. People loved it. The other bands that were there loved it. Everyone was like, man, this kid's great. And people were patting me on the shoulder. It felt really good. But our guitar player... he was a bit older, and it was his band, and he was writing the songs. All that he could process about the whole thing was like, you had to sneak out of your house and run here. So yeah, so he's just like, man, this ain't gonna work, man. Like, we and a lot of the clubs were older. Like, I was too young to get into even play the shows. He's like, yeah, man. So. And my skateboarding was also like, you love skateboarding too much, I wanted to do both, but so I always kind of joke like I got kicked out for skateboarding too much, but it's unfair to them, like but so that's kind of
the running to the show is actually a better story.
Yeah, it was just like we all thought that, hey, this could be really great, but I was just a touch young, and I had other things happening in my life that were going to keep the band from moving as fast as it wanted to move.
But you didn't walk away from it. You had Mike V and the Rats.
Yeah. So, well, I and ever since then, I really tried to stay active in music, but I was never able to really get a band together. Or it's weird. Like once I had success in skateboarding, if I would talk to someone who was a musician, I'd be, hey, we should play some music. They never took me seriously. They're like, well, dude, you're a pro skater. But pro skaters had bands.
Right.
But it was
just 2 things at once.
Yeah, it was just a weird kind of like, I always felt like no one really took me that seriously. And I thought like, I'd always written poems or song lyrics. I thought I was writing good stuff, and I was like looking for an outlet for it. And I just could never find one. In 2001, I met, I was doing a wheel company, and one of the guys that was working at the wheel company was a really great musician, and he had a great band. I went and saw them play, and I was so jealous when I saw them. I was like, oh, these guys are so great. This is exactly the kind of band I would want to put together. And I said, oh man, I love your band, and if you ever want to do something, I'd love, he's like, I got a band. Why would I want to do something else? I was like, okay, sorry, but wasn't much long after that, he reached out to me. He goes, hey, I wrote some songs. You want to give them a listen, see if you think you come up with some words for them? I was like, hell yes, man. And that became Mike V and the Rats. But I mean, I was introduced to Blag Flag that first day in 1984, September of 84, when I went down in the basement, got my head shaved. Those guys made me a mixtape. The first song on the mixtape was Blag Flag, Rise Above. There's other great music on that mixtape, but I didn't need to hear any of it. Rise Above became the mantra of my life. It was like, it was so optimistic and so positive, and so much of punk rock is so negative and so like victimology,
Right.
And this was a song like Rise Above, like, you have the power. We are born with the chance. I am gonna have my chance. Just very powerful lyrics. So I loved the band. A month later, I went with those same guys I was in the band with before they had their band. We went to Trenton, New Jersey to see Blag Flag play. So I was 14 years old. Go to Trenton, New Jersey, see Blag Flag. Don't own a skateboard yet. And we're hanging out in the parking lot. It was like, we were like tailgating. I don't even know if we called it tailgate. I don't even know if that was like a concept. It was just like, get there early to like experience the whole thing, like, and there was kids from all over the region, from Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New York, Delaware, had all converged in Trenton, New Jersey to see Blag Flag, and everyone's hanging out in the parking lot. And then some guy gets on a skateboard, and he starts like kind of like slashing around in the parking lot, but the parking lot was really poor asphalt, gravelly asphalt, so he's not able to really do much, but something was happening, so everyone kind of walked over and started watching this guy slash around. And suddenly my buddy, a guy who shaved, his name is Keith, by the way, shaved my head, gave me the mixtape. He's standing there and he looks at the guy on the board, he goes, "You should see this kid skate." I had no idea up until that moment that anyone of my friends thought anything of my
Right.
I didn't even own a skateboard yet.
Yeah.
But he
So
had
chasing
seen
kids down the street.
He had seen some of those 30-second, sessions that I had, and he was blown away by it. And I didn't know that until he said it out loud to somebody else. He's like, "You should see this kid skate." And the guy pushes the board over to me, and I get on it. And I just, again, it's like the puppy out of the cage, man. I went wild on the pavement. And the pavement was so bad that I looked around and I saw behind the venue there was a street, and then there was some sort of manufacturing building of some sort, industrial building, and there was a sidewalk and some stairs, and the street looked smoother over there. So I bolted over there, and lo and behold, the entire crowd of people in the parking lot follows me over. It's like my first skate demonstration, my first performance, and it was for a willing audience. Like those kids that I skated with, that I chased behind, they never valued my energy or what I did on the board. They thought I was a pain in the ass. This group of people, they weren't invested in skating in the same way those kids were. They were like, skating to them was like just is cool, and enthusiasm was awesome. Like, look at this guy, he's just going for it. Like, they could appreciate it. So suddenly I had an audience that was wide open to what I was doing, and I was just looking for. I started doing things on the board I'd never done before. I jumped off these stairs, rolled through this grass into the street, and they're cheering. Yeah, it's like my aggressive style has found an audience. I was like, wow, this is so cool. So I see this bucket on the sidewalk, and I go over and I kick it over, right? And everyone cheers, like, yeah! I kick the bucket over, and there's tar in the bucket, and a little bit of tar spills out, right? And they're like, yeah! Right, I got tar on my new, I had some new Vans, I got tar on them. I was like, oh, shit. But I go around, and I skate up, and I pop the board into my hand, and I jump over the bucket, and everyone goes crazy, man. And I was like, this is so awesome. And I circle back, and I go, I'm gonna try something I've never done before. I'm gonna jump over the bucket 180. I'm gonna land backwards.
Yeah,
never done it. Never had this much time on a skateboard.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I'm getting set up to go, and everyone sort of realizes this is the highlight. This is what the whole thing's been building towards, right? And I'm getting real serious, getting ready. I'm about to take off, and I see the attention of the crowd shift from me to something behind me. And I immediately think, oh, the cops are coming, or but I don't care. I'm going to go anyway. Whatever's coming behind me, rabid dog, the police. I'm going. They can arrest me after I land it. And I go and I jump 180, and in the air I turn and I look to see what's coming behind me. And it's Henry Rollins, the singer of Blag Flag, is walking down the street.
No shit.
And he's walking down the street, and he's carrying 2 bags of groceries. And he walks up, and as I land, he gets right even with me, and he goes, yeah, man. and then he walks past and into the venue, walks right past everyone real quick, right into the venue, and everyone's like, I didn't even know who it was. I didn't know who he was. I was just some dude with.
I've seen him speak.
And he's like, yeah, man, and the crowd's like, oh my god, and then they didn't quite put me up on their shoulders, but that was the vibe. They convert, patting me, Henry said, and I didn't know who he was yet, and they're like, oh, so then we go in to see the show, and it's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, it was a life affirming experience. Here I am, 14 years old, standing in front of this stage, and these men get on the stage, and I'd never seen live music before in my life, and they just come out and they just assault it. It's just so unrelenting, just so powerful.
And his energy is
crazy.
I've
never seen anything like it, and And I determined at that moment, that night, watching that band play, it was Greg Ginn, Henry Rollins, Bill Stevenson, and Kira Rossler. I watched them play, and I determined whatever I do in my life for the rest of my life, I'm doing it just like that. I mean, you would have thought there was thousands and thousands of people in the audience. There was a spattering of some 80, maybe, you know? I mean, you know, but they gave it everything. And I'd never seen anybody give it everything live and in person right in front of my eyes. I'd seen sports on TV.
Right.
I'd done that on the skateboard out in the street, and I'd done that playing sports myself, but never like older people, like live in person right in front of my eyes with that intensity. And I was just like, these guys know something that other adults don't know. They're doing something that other people won't do. And that's so cool. And I got to be a part of something like that. So it totally influenced, well, the rest of my life. I mean, it was, you know, seeing Thrasher, understanding what street skating represented. That's sort of the over the rainbow moment. And then seeing Blag Flag is the life affirming moment. It's like, this is your life. You can write the script. These guys, I mean, they're not playing Madison Square Garden, you know. That's what I thought. That's where I thought music occurred, you know, in some giant arena. They were doing it, and they were doing it with the greatest intensity and sincerity that probably every rock act that was playing Madison Square Garden wished they had,
right.
You know. And I was like, that's when I realized you could do anything you want in this life, you know. They just proved it right in front of me, and it was relatable, and it was accessible. And it totally turned me on to music in a way that I always loved music, but this was like a different experience. So real important moment in my life, you know. Going forward, we start the band Mike V and the Rats in 2001, 2002. In 2003, Mike V and the Rats gets the opportunity to open up for Greg Ginn, the guitar player and founding member and main songwriter for Blag Flag. Mm-hmm. We were so excited. You know, it was like, this guy's a hero. Always been a hero of ours. We had never met him. You know, we were just really excited to get the gig. We didn't think that, you know, we're just an opening band. Like, and we'd been an opening band for other acts, and we knew what that meant. Like, you just know your role. Get up there, set your stuff up, play, get off, get out of the way.
Yeah, keep your mouth shut. Don't look at anybody.
Yeah. But so we're playing the first show that we ended up doing like 15 shows opening for Greg, and the first show. The crowd is pretty typical Southern California punk rock crowd. Arms folded, scowls on their faces, backs to the wall.
Waiting for you to get off.
Yeah, and we're, of course, giving it everything we got, and nobody cares. And then suddenly one person comes up and stands right in front of us and is like moving their body and hand in the air, like having a great time, just really enjoying the music. It's Greg Ginn, the guy we're opening for. And I'm singing it. I'm just like, is this like real? Like, I know it's him, you know. I'm just like, what is he doing? Like, you know,
dude, why are you over there?
Yeah. Like, most of the acts we ever opened for, we never even met them.
Yeah.
They stayed in their backstage room or in their van or their vehicle and came to the stage and never even interacted with us. And the guy that we're opening for is like in the front row, the only person, there is no row, it's just him, just having a great time. And he watched our whole set. And when we were done, he walked right over we had some merch set up, and he started to buy a t-shirt. And I haven't even met the guy. I run over, and I'm like, hey, you don't have to buy that. Like, you can have it. He's like, oh no. If you like a band, you support the band. I'm buying it. And I was like a band? Like, like he's a fan of our band?
Right.
Like, and then he starts talking to me. He's like, you guys were great. And I was like, it's so embarrassing, man, because when we started the band, we basically decided we were going to just try to be Blag Flag. We're going to sound like Blag Flag.
And, we're trying to be you.
Yeah, like, you're the inspiration for our music. And he's like, oh, it's so obvious, but there's also so many other things happening. You got great songs. You got great tones. You got great songwriting and great vocals. And I was like, great vocals? You know, the guys in my band, I'd never gotten feedback from anybody. My family wouldn't even give me feedback. We'd play a show, but how was it? Yeah, it was good. They wouldn't say, "Oh, you sounded great." No one. I had never gotten 1 ounce of like positive feedback. Not maybe never even got negative, but I got nothing. You know, no constructive criticism. Not. I was dying every time we played. Like I knew I was giving it my all, but I didn't know if it was landing because most of the audiences, people were really nice afterwards. Usually, hey, that was great. Shake my hand, get a picture with me or something. But they would stand against the wall with their arms crossed and a scowl. Right. So it appeared that they hated us, but it's just their self-image or something. I don't know. And so I really didn't know. I had no idea of what I was doing. I had no reflection to look at. You know, nobody had given me any kind of information. And here's Greg Ginn, like a hero of mine, owes me nothing, and he's like, "Oh, I loved your vocals." He goes, "In fact, yeah, I think you're so great at what you're doing, and for the sound," he's like, "if I ever did a band like that again, like that style of music, I'd love to have you sing." And I was like, "What the hell?" Like, I knew he was sincere, because nobody says that kind, you know,
right?
Like, and I know for certain now because Greg doesn't, you know, he doesn't waste words. If he says something, he means it, you know. And I was like, wow, that was heavy, man. So I just kind of like was like, well, that was really nice of him, and it made me like really like happy that we were playing with him and excited and enthused to do our best every single night. I was like, well, this is a good dude, and we're gonna do our best to open these shows up and support him, you know. And it was fun. We had a great run opening up for him, and when it was coming to an end, he told me, yeah, the reason I've been doing all these shows is to prepare myself for a Blag Flag reunion that's been in the works for a while. And we were like, oh, no way. You know, we're like, can we open? He's like, no, you can't. Yeah. But as the planning for the reunion went on and on, a bunch of different things started happening with ex-members, and you know, and people couldn't get on the same page, and the things started to unravel and fall apart. And at a certain point, Greg called me and he said, "Hey, you know, not all the original members are going to be doing this, and it's kind of evolved into something else. And would you be interested in doing like a guest vocal set with us?" And he goes, "I know that I had told him, or he had read something that the My War album was a big album for me, that I went and bought it, and it was like the first record I bought with my own money, and you know." And he's like, "So would you want to sing that record cover to cover? We've never done that. Like the band had never played all those songs. Would you like to do it?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." I didn't understand, and I didn't care that there was noise or politics around this with other members or even the audience. I didn't care. This guy had been so kind and so nice and so real to me and the guys in my band that if he asked me to do it, I was in. Like, I wasn't going to overthink it. Like, well, what will the magazine say? You know, fuck the magazine. Yeah. This is face to face. I face value, man. This guy's a righteous dude. I'm in, you know? And I went and did it, and the audience was pretty hostile about that. At one point, there was a trash can, metal trash can, set on fire flying out of it, thrown at me. You know, there was a real sense of the threat of violence, and you know, but I just played the songs, I sang them, I gave it all I had. I actually think it was a really, really good set of music. I got tore apart by critics and other musicians that were in the house, but I know it was good. People just didn't want it to be what it was, you know. And I figured when it was over, we played 3 shows. I did 2 nights at the Hollywood Palladium in 2003.
So the band liked it, and the band was good with it.
Yeah.
It felt good.
Yeah.
That's what's important.
Yeah. And we played 2 nights at Hollywood Palladium, and then another night at more of a underground secret show in Long Beach at a punk rock bar. And when it was over, I figured I'll probably never see Greg again. I think that I felt like the experience as a whole of bringing Blag Flag back out of the closet had a negative overall negative feeling for him, and he's just like just gonna put it back in the closet and move on with my life. He wasn't the band had never reunited up until that point because he wasn't really interested, and he decided to reunite the band. Ultimately, he wanted to do it as for a charity, for a cause. He said, if we're gonna do this, then it should be for a cause.
Right.
And his cause was the welfare of cats. He cares a lot about cats, stray cats, and then he learned that most of these reunions, most of these charity shows, bands make off better at a charity show than they would at one of the regular shows. That only a small percentage of the money brought in actually goes to the cause. And he determined that no, that's wrong. Every penny we make as a reunited Blag Flag is going towards the cause. And that's where the reunion unraveled. Everyone was looking for a payday.
Yeah.
Very short-sighted, if you ask me, on the behalf of the members that didn't show up, because they just saw it as Greg trying to control them or the situation, which maybe that is the case, but it's his band to control and his ideas. But show up and it goes positive, there's maybe plenty of paydays after that,
right?
You know, but they just was like, oh, it's Greg's off on one of his things, and you know, I had no baggage to bring to the table. I just showed up as a fan and asked to sing, and I'll do it. So when the reunion was over, I pretty much figured this will never happen again, and he's not going to be touring anymore doing this style of music, so we're not going to get to interact on the road in any way. So I called up this photographer friend of mine, skate photographer. I said, hey, could you come with me? I'm going to go, you know, I want to go get a photo with Greg down at SST and have him sign my War record and shake his hand and thank him. And I figured that would be it. So we went down there. He signed my record. He said, Mike, thanks for singing with us. Greg Ginn, he drew the Blag Flag bars on it. And then we took a photo, and I shook his hand, and I said, well, thanks for everything. It was an honor to play music with you. And, you know, and he goes, okay, well, you know, I got your number, and I'll reach out to you if I ever want to do another band, or if Blag Flag ever happened again in the future, I'd love to have you be a part of it. And I was like, what? You know, and I was like, why is he, you know? And he's like, oh, just, you know, years go by. I don't talk to him for years. And then I get a call or an email. Hey, Mike, it's Greg. I'm not playing rock music right now, but I just want to stay in touch. If I ever do decide to do a rock band, I'd love to work with you. If you're still interested, I would just email back like, yeah, if you ever want to do anything, I'm here, you know. Years and years and years. It wasn't 2011 or 12.
So he called you.
Yeah.
And 10 years later.
Yeah. And he's like, I wrote some songs. You want to give them a listen, see if you come up with some words? Well, he sent me like 73 tracks or something.
That he's been writing.
Yeah. And I didn't even know how to process that much music. And I didn't really even know where to start. So he sent me so much music, and I thought, this is so real. Like you know, my first band, my bandmate Jason sent me 3 songs. This is 73 songs. Like, so I said, well, I got to take a real a working man approach to this. So I'd get up at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'd go out in my garage and I'd play the music, and I had a notebook, and I would just listen to the tracks, and I would just start writing words, like words that I thought sounded like what the music sounded like. And then I'd look at other, you know, I've been always writing stuff, so I had other notebooks filled with song ideas, and then I'd say, oh, does that song idea match up to these words at all? And then I'd pull pieces from other songs, and I started over time, over weeks, over months, writing words for every single track he sent me.
How long did that take?
I don't know. It was months.
Yeah.
It was months. And then I finally got back to him. I said, hey, I got some words. I didn't tell him I wrote words for every single song. And you know, what I learned later is when he goes into the studio to record tracks, he's just he gets into a zone, and then he goes through all these different kind of feelings or different ideas, and he explores them. He explores all of them. That's how he got so many tracks, right? It's like an exploration. Well, I did the same thing with the words. And when I eventually went out to Texas, he had moved to Texas, and he had a recording studio there. I went out there to work on the songs with him. I showed up ready to, you know, sing 73 songs. and had words for all of them. And he was like, he's like, you're the first person that's ever matched my output. Like I've never. He goes, I expect you to show up with 10.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. Like, I took it as like, you sent me 73. I have to.
Right, that was the expectation.
Yeah, that's what I thought the expectation. But the expectation was 10. You know. And so he was just like, wow. And we started recording them. I think we actually released like 40 some of them. You know, we never recorded all. We still have unrecorded material, but and then it was like he said, you know, as we were working on material, we're getting closer to thinking like we're getting somewhere with it. He's like, well, what do you think we should do? You know, should we put this stuff out? I was like, yeah, man, let's put it out. He's like, as Blag Flag. And I was like, no, let's start a new band. Like, you know, I was intimidated by the idea of it being Blag Flag, and I also just didn't want to like make any kind of claim there. Right. You know, I just thought we should do a new band. But then I said to him, I said, well, you know, this material's a lot of it's really autobiographical, kind of. It's like personal to me, and I don't think those are Blag Flag songs. And we have such a great relationship. Like we're really getting along and really vibing well in the studio. And he got really mad at me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's like, you don't say what Blag Flag is. Like Blag Flag's whatever we want it to be. Like it was offensive to him. And I understand now because I'm like really good friends with him and I've spent a lot of time with him. I understand like that was like the worst thing I could say is to try to tell Blag Flag, Greg Ginn is Blag Flag. Right. Try to tell him what Blag Flag is or should be. He's saying to me that we could release this as Blag Flag, and I'm saying this isn't Blag Flag. Well, who the hell are you to say what Blag Flag is?
But he's also taking you in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's
and showing you, right? Not telling you, he's showing you.
Yeah.
You are part.
He has opened the door to me. He's allowed me in. Yeah, he's saying you like, but we still determine we'll release it as a new band. Shortly after we release it and we start a process of, you know, supporting the music, he decides to reunite Blag Flag. And I realize now, like in perspective, like my own hesitations, whatever my hangups were, I should have got over it right away. I should have accepted being the singer then, because we could have avoided a lot of headaches that came. You know, I mean, the headaches were going to come no matter what, but we could be well past them now. Right. It became clear like he was open and willing to do it, and he would have brought me in as the singer, but I was in a different headspace. And so he had reunited with one of the previous singers, Ron Reyes, and decided that they were going to go out and tour as Blag Flag. And he asked me if our project, our band, would I be willing to be the opening band for Blag Flag, and also would I be willing to help him manage the band, because we had a good relationship, and he felt like he liked my style of doing things. He's like totally in line with how I want to run stuff. He helped me manage the band, tour manage the band, and this was in that time period that we were speaking about earlier, where my career was coming to a crashing end
in skateboarding.
Yeah, and I thought I needed employment. I absolutely needed a job, and I could have probably found one in the industry, but it might have also meant me continuing to put my body on the line, which I was getting less and less comfortable with that exterior pressure. Yeah. I'm okay with it if it comes from within, but the exterior pressure I'm just not going to go for. But that would be
and that would starts hurting more.
Yeah, that would be the job requirement, and the expectations would be high. And you know, here was an opportunity to do something that I loved, and I thought I could be successful at. And I think I was as successful as anyone could be in the situation. The relationship with Ron unfortunately broke down really quick. There's a lot of stuff. None of it's worth getting into because it's none of my business. Yeah. And it's and ultimately I don't want to put bad energy out about anybody. Yeah. You know, Ron was great until it wasn't great anymore. And when it wasn't great anymore, it was a dysfunctional situation. And it came to an ultimate head in Australia, and the way that the whole thing has been presented to the world is that I kicked him out of the band. He actually had quit the band. He'll, you know, he's gonna have his version of the story.
Sure.
You know, telling my version of the story. I don't know. Is it even fair to anybody? Because there's just then there's a rebuttal. There's this is what happened. No, this is what happened.
So you end up as a lead singer of Blag Flag, which
I didn't. What happened is the whole thing melted down that night, and the show ended. I sang a song after he had left the stage, and then a guy from another band came up and sang a song, and then another person sang, and it ended as a sort of a celebration of the music. It was a real positive kind of ending to a bad situation.
Sure.
But it wasn't like I became the singer. After the show that night, Greg's like, "I'm done with this, man. I just can't. You know, I'm over it. I don't want to do this anymore. It's just, you know, it's a nightmare." And but a couple months later, he called me. He goes, "No, I can't let it end like that.
Right.
Would you be willing to take on the role of singing?" And by this point, like, he had brought me into to his world, and I'd been such an integral part of everything he'd been doing for years, and we're friends. And I also had watched what had happened, and I knew I could do it better. You know, I could do it better. Maybe I'm not the same singer that Ron is. I might not sing the songs as good as him, but I could pay tribute to this music and those songs with all of my heart and all of my soul, and with a relationship with Greg that was positive, and that we were in it together to present the music to the people and bring it to them. And I thought I could do that job, and so I said yes. And I've been the singer of the band since January of 2014. We've toured pretty extensively, but I think our best days are still ahead of us. I think we're just getting better at doing it, and I'm getting better, and I have an even greater understanding of the songs. You know, these aren't my songs, but really, although most of them are associated with different singers, with Henry Rollins or Des Cadena or Keith Morris or Ron Reyes. Yeah, there's 4 singers before me. So most people only know Henry Rollins or Keith Morris, but there's 2 other singers too, Ron and Des. So there's been a lot of singers. That's been part of the history of the band. And though the songs are associated with those guys, they didn't write the songs. Greg wrote them. They're Greg's songs. They're his lyrics. That's his music. And he has determined that I'm the person to sing his songs. And that's where I kind of come from. It's like, the man who wrote them wants me to sing them. No one else is going to do it. It's going to be me, so I'm going to do it.
And that becomes a drive. You know, that becomes a drive. That becomes a purpose. That gets you up every day to honor that.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, and it's taken me quite a lot of time to process it in that way, because there is so much noise. There's grumblings from the ex-members. There's online rants. There's, you know, an audience that has a, you know, opinion, and but then there's the ultimate reality of we're in the room together, we're in the van together, we're on stage together. And we know it's good, and we're doing the best we can, and people are leaving the shows having a good time, and that's all that matters. And I have to put everything that comes with it aside and honor the relationship and honor the music.
The next event I saw is in 2023 for Blag Flag.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
so
you
we
got
have a show almost a year from now, booked in Jakarta, Indonesia, but activity will start before that. We'll probably be announcing shows in the U.S. for later this year, relatively soon.
But you also have the Complete Disaster tour.
Yep. Yeah.
And the name of the group, not that the tour is going to be a complete disaster.
No. Yeah. The Complete Disaster. The idea is that, you know, is it really art unless it's has the is it on the verge of becoming a complete disaster?
That's entrepreneurism.
yeah.
That's anything you put, you talked about going all out, right? Give it everything you have. Every time you go out there and you give it everything you have, I feel like that's where you live. I mean, we felt that way coming down here to do this activation for the podcast. The email I sent to all, my whole team involved was like, hey, look, either this is going to be an amazing experience and we make all these partnerships and we have great conversations, or at the very worst, we had a great weekend in sunny Florida.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, But yeah, the complete disaster is actually new music that I got a band put together in Des Moines, Iowa. Very excited about the music. We just released an EP. We start touring it later in May. We got tour dates in May, and then we have tour dates in the summer too. So I'll be pretty active in music, and I think that'll be good. I think really excited about the music, and the way that audiences have been responding to the complete disaster has been really great. But I think it's also it's good. It's just good to be able to go and I have another band, Revolution Mother, that we have a show in June at the Born Free Motorcycle Show in Southern California, which is a huge show for us. And that band hasn't really been active in many years, but is people in the motorcycle culture, they really love the band, and so we're getting together for that show. So I got 3 bands, and I'm actually releasing another album sometime this year with a buddy of mine, Matt Baxter. We have a band that we put together called The Morning Trail, which is a different, more of like a little, I don't know how to characterize music. It's rock, but it's not as aggressive as Complete Disaster or Blag Flag or Revolution Mother. It's a little bit different, but we're very excited about those songs too. So I got a lot going on musically. I always have. Some people think that's like, well, just focus on one thing, dude. It's like,
yeah, I was just gonna ask you about that.
Yeah, you live one time, you try to maximize it. I mean, if the well of inspiration is there, you tap into it, and good things are coming from all of those relationships, and musically I'm very happy about everything. If something was a stinker, I would shut it down, Yeah.
What's next for the business for Street Plant Skateboarding?
I think we're just I mean, one of the main reasons I'm here is we have a collaboration with GORUCK, which maybe sounds bizarre, but not to us, not to Jason, and not to me. We've well of inspiration. Yeah, we connected in 2010. I did a GORUCK challenge. We've been friends ever since. Stayed in touch, very much like Greg. Like, it's 10 years, and we've stayed in touch the whole time. We should do something together. We never figured out what that was, and now we're activating that. We have a collaborative skateboard coming out. We have a collaborative skate ruck sack coming out.
That's awesome.
And a lot of people think, well, how does that fit into the GORUCK culture? But the GORUCK culture ultimately is one of just get outside and do it. And that's what skateboarding is all about, So totally makes sense to us. So that's kind of the main thing we're working on right now. That'll be coming out in the next couple weeks here. And then also just seeking other relationships like that, just like where do we intersect with other cool things? What cool skateboard ideas can we cook up that are true to us? I don't ever go for licensing for the sake of licensing. It has to be meaningful. I have to have my heart and soul have to be invested in it. I could never do you see so many skateboard companies, they have Star Wars or Marvel or whatever, Disney, whatever, any of these corporate mainstream brands. Now, if I was super excited if I was like a Star Wars fanatic, that would be great.
Yeah.
I like Star Wars, but I have no desire to make Star Wars skateboards. I don't care how much money's in it.
Right.
I don't care. But we did a Bruce Lee skateboard. Damn right, I was excited about that.
Yeah.
We did a Jerry Garcia skateboard. Holy shit, So that kind of stuff is what, gets me excited. It's like, who can we work with? What's meaningful to me? But ultimately, we have a philosophical approach to our company, and that's skate, create, and enjoy. We ultimately just want to be the brand that a skater or a potential skater turns to, because we're going to welcome you into skating with love. No entrance exam. You don't have to pass any tests. Just Do you love skating? Do you want to skate? Is it fun? Do you enjoy it? Cool. Skate, create, enjoy.
Well, let me know when you want to do a Jedburgh skateboard. I got a good design for you.
Okay, well we'll see. Well, I'll pay attention. We'll see how this goes. We'll see how this lands out in the world.
Well, Mike, as we close out, the Jedburghs in World War II, they had to do 3 things as core foundational tasks. They were their daily habits, if you will. They had to be able to shoot, they had to be able to move, they had to be able to communicate. If they did these 3 things with the utmost precision, it really didn't matter what other challenges came their way, because they could focus their effort and their energy on solving those more complex challenges. What are the 3 things that you do every day in your daily habit, your daily routine, that set the conditions for success in your world?
You know, I think I just said it. It's the philosophy of our company. Skate. It's action. It's going out and doing something. You could change that word with bike, ruck, run, paddle, anything. Skate. Be active. Get out there and do it. Create. Bring some imagination, creativity, some dreaming, some artistic expression. Express yourself. Be free. Ultimately, that's what it means. Be free. Be active. Be free. Enjoy. Love what you're doing. Enjoy it. Enjoy the moment. Actually slow it down and stop and smell the roses. It's all cliche stuff, but it's real stuff if you can apply it to your life. And so, the saying in skating in the 80s was skate and destroy. It's a great saying because the way I interpreted it was great anyway. It meant skate and destroy boundaries. It wasn't vandalism. It wasn't being purposefully destructive. It was more philosophical. At least that's my interpretation of it. I think that's how many people of my generation took it. It was a positive. It sounds negative, which is cool.
Right.
It has that edge, but ultimately it was a very positive thing to me. Skate and destroy. Well, 30 some plus 40 years later, people still flying that flag. It's really boring to me because it's not positive to them anymore. They're purposefully flying a flag of negativity. They're like, oh, skating's in the Olympics. Oh, people wear helmets at skate parks. Oh, it's just so suburbanized and it's mainstream. So there's this gutter level approach to skating that's really kind of has a negative connotation. And it's an acting out because it's not based on a reality. Reality is it is in the Olympics. Reality is you have been facilitated.
Yeah.
Reality is that people are going out of their way to accommodate skateboarding in their cities, and so you're just acting like a spoiled punk. So skate and destroy has been taken. It's been taken by the lower class, and it's their it's just boring to me. This is boring to me. So when we started Street Plant, I was like, what is my answer to that? And by the way, most people would probably think I was Mr. Skate and Destroy. I mean, actually, I have it tattooed on me, that I would be the individual who would represent that more than anybody. No fucking way. No way. That's not my dream. My dream was to popularize skating in the most positive sense. My dream was to welcome everyone into skating who wanted to skate, whether a little kid or a guy in his 50s getting back into it or who never skated before, moms. I love all of that. That was when I was starting out on the streets of Edison, New Jersey, and I was getting harassed and beat up and picked on for being a skater. First time I ever interacted with a police officer, I got beat up. I thought, I'm changing this. And now there's people in our culture that want to go backwards, and hold on to the glory days of the 70s and 80s. It's called spinning your wheels in the mud. Get out of here. If you're not part of the future, get out of the way. So skate, create, and enjoy became my sort of answer to that, and I hadn't thought about it in this other way before until you asked the question. But I think it's really my overall life philosophy.
I love it. Skate, create, and enjoy. Mike, every episode we talk a lot about the 9 characteristics of elite performance. We talked about them the other night. We've weaved them into so much of this conversation. Your story exhibits all of these: drive, resiliency, adaptability, humility, integrity, curiosity, team ability.
Can you write these down? Can you write this down for me?
I am going to write them down for you. And it'll be a test question. I'll give you the test question. I'll put them on a shirt, so when I ask you, you can read them all.
Well, that could be a good skateboard graphic. The 9.
Yeah, but in order to perform at the most elite level, Special Operations Command says you have to exhibit these 9, never at one time all at once, but depending on the situation that you're in, you'll exhibit different portions of them. I say that, and then at the end of these conversations, I think about your story, I think about the conversation we have, and I think about the one that I believe you exhibit the most in everything that you've done. And to me, it's about drive. And I believe that from that, when you were 14 years old, and you said, I have a direction in my life. I don't know where it's going to end. I don't know the journey it's going to take me on, but I know that I have to push myself to get there. And you spiked your hair and you went to school, and all of a sudden, in a very short time, these 2 tracks that have defined so much of your life and defined your impact in the world, in skateboarding and in music, were defined. And then you pursued both of those with such a passion and such a vigor where you never quit. You found opportunity. Drive, I believe, sits at so much of the foundation of these other characteristics, because if you don't have the drive to pursue more, then nothing matters when you wake up in the morning. And you spoke about the driving factors in skateboarding and the driving factors in music, and then how so many things have come full circle, and you continue to do that today, having achieved so much and having gone through difficult times in both. But every day you wake up, and you talked about finding the new opportunity. It brought you here, down to Sandlot Jax. It brought you and I together. It brought us here.
Sure.
And it put us here in the back of this ambulance having this conversation. I told you it'd be 45 minutes. We're going to be 2 hours on this thing. I've loved every minute of it.
Oh, cool.
I thank you so much for the opportunity to sit down with you. It was an honor to meet you, spend time with you. I value your time, and I thank you for spending it with me.
Oh, man. Thank you. Thank you. Bro, that was awesome.
Yeah. Sick.
American Jedburghs went on to form the foundation of the United States Special Forces and the Special Activities Directorate of the Central Intelligence Agency. Thanks for listening to the Jedburgh Podcast. I'm your creator and host, Fran Racioppi. Join us next week for a new episode on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube for full episodes, highlights, and other behind-the-scenes content. If you like what you heard, give us a like and leave a review. Follow me, Fran Racioppi, Talent War Group, and our sponsor Jersey Mike Subs on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Send your comments and inquiries to media@talentwargroup.com. As former members of Special Operations Forces, the Jedburgh Podcast and Talent War Group contribute a percentage of all profits to Special Operations Warrior Foundation, supporting the families of our fallen warriors. Thanks for joining us on this episode. How you prepare today determines success tomorrow.